I'm showing you how to make a clay mask. Now, these are fast, easy ways to do it, and I'm just going to get started. This is my sphere of clay, and it's just a nice, comfortable, round piece that you pat it and make it nice and round. Then, this is the part the students really like. You just whack it down. Dang it, everything jumps. It's really cool. And then you just pat it into a head shape. Just make the chin, make the top of the head. That's it. That's as easy as it gets. Now you can make it a little flatter than that because I've noticed it's a little bit high. Don't need it to be that high. Looks a little bit like an alien as we go here. But like I said, whack it down. That's all you do. Flat on the back. Now what's going to happen at some point when you make this? You are going to hollow out the back. Now this is just a piece of wire in a loop, and you hollow this out, and you would make your mask about 1 centimeter thick all the way through, 1/2 inch thick all the way through, and just remove all this excess clay. Now there's 2 theories of thought. You can do it at the beginning, like I started to do here now, or you can leave it to the end. If you leave it to the end, your features on the top of the face have been a little bit smashed. So that's a personal choice, and I usually tell the students it's their personal choice what they want to do. If the clay is too thick, it's going to crack in the kiln and it'll take too long to dry, etc., etc., etc. So there we are. We have a little face shape. First thing you do is you take your eyeball gouger and make sure it's clean. This is why you have all of these sponges around. You mark down halfway down the face, and you measure it carefully so the students remember to measure it carefully. This is halfway down the face. That's where the eyes are usually sitting. And of course it's 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, the nose being the middle fifth. And you do a little quick calculation and measurement. And you can always prepare this earlier with a ruler if you want to. And now I'm going to draw on, again, always make sure all that dry clay is off your tool. Draw on an eye. Sorry, I have to be right over top of it to see what I'm doing. An almond shape eye. Now, the hard part is getting 2 eyes the same. You never do, but you don't want to show the kids that, so you just do this yourself. Now you scoop out the eye. Believe it or not, it's kind of like an operation. And you smooth out the eye socket. It's almost like the eyeball's been removed because that's what that little bit of clay is. That is the eyeball. Smooth it out. It's easier to do it now than later. With your fingers is great. Then make a little sphere with this, and that becomes the eyeball. It's a little bit 3D. Then with all this stuff that you take out from the rear, especially if you don't have a lot of clay, it's good to have lots of this from the back to work with. You make a little teeny tiny snake. Then you pat it down so it's a flat snake on your clay board, nice and even. Then you take and set it down over top of the eyeball and underneath the eyeball. And this does double duty. It keeps the eyeball from falling out. Now, you can just take your eyeball gouger and work it in. It works really well. And you do the top and the bottom. And hey, if the students get really frustrated with making 2 eyeballs, then you just make them do cyclopses. It works for me. Maybe not for you. So now, going back to your rules of the face shape and rules of drawing, then your nose is about 1/3 of the way, 1/3 down to the, you know, all those measurements. So you measure down where you want your nose to be, where you want your lips to be. And your nose, again, using this clay from the back. You just make it like Bert and Ernie from the Muppets, right? You're making a little nose shape to add in there. You just start working it in and smoothing it in. It has to be smoothed in. Now you're almost touching your eye at this point in time. Smooth it all the way down, all the way around. Make the little nostrils. Kids like that too. Haha, it's real funny. I've always found. Then you've got your nose sitting there. And again with the little sausage shapes, snake shapes, this is how you make your lips. If you want teeth, the teeth go in first. And just like the eyeball, the little sausage shape will be the mouth and it holds the teeth in place. I'm doing this upside down and really fast. So this would be bottom lip. And it's the bottom of the lip that gets smoothed in. And then the definition of the face is right there. And we'll give that a little smooth as we go. If the students find their face isn't looking very good, you can just have them add on. If they have a no chin look, that would be okay. Just add it on later. And then, of course, here's your top lip. And again, make it whatever shape you want. And again, it's going to be smoothed in at the top of the lip. And it looks pretty realistic. There's your mouth shape. Next thing is you want to maybe add a little bit to the chin. Just place some there, smooth it in, make it more realistic, because if you just go with that sphere that's been flattened on the table, it doesn't really look like a chin. It just kind of looks like a dropping off point on a cliff. And at the top, you're going to take some clay for your eyebrow so it sticks out. I just watched a show tonight where they were putting saline solution into people's eyebrows and making a bagel shape. Oh my gosh, what would you do that for? Sorry. That's something you're going to have to contend with in the classroom. So you've added on this extra for the forehead. When you're adding eyebrow, you can just put it there and smooth it all in so it's a little bit bigger. Then if you want the hair on the eyebrow, you just are going to take either a pencil or a tool and just make the little lines that become the hair for the eyebrow. So when you're doing your demonstration, you don't have to do both sides to the face. Just one is fine. Now, this is my rudimentary mask. This is what I would do in this amount of time in front of the students. The last thing I just wanted to mention before I leave masks is that you will want, let's see if I can find it here. At the back, this is really nice. Once this is all hollowed out, and of course they have their name right there because they need to know it's theirs, don't let them use initials, because you can't read the initials. You might have a better chance if it's a name, right? What you want to do at the back is make a little hook that becomes the hang-up hook for the clay. Now this has been fired in the kiln already. And you, of course, are going to cut this the right size. I just am using one piece of wire that I had around. And I just move my little hooks in. On the back, once it's been fired, for the second time if you're using glazes. If you're not using glazes after the first time, and after they're finished painting it, you are going to take a tube of that silicone that you seal up bathtubs with, and you're going to put a little block there and a little block there. So both sides, little blobs, and this will be the hanger for students to take it home and they can put it on the wall. The little bit of silicone on the edge keeps it from scratching the wall too. It's really great. There's your mask. We'll set that one aside. Next thing I want to show you is how to make a piggy bank. Now, when my daughter was going to all of those many birthday parties for kids her age, I would make, starting on her birthday, I would make everybody the same gift all year. So next year they got something else. But one year it was piggy banks for everybody. And what you do to make a piggy bank, is you use the pinch pot technique. Now, that means taking two spheres equal size and making them into pinch pots, then putting them together. Now, I've already made one pinch pot here. I'll leave that, and I'll show you how to make the other pinch pot. You put your thumb in, and you just start working round and round and round. Again, 1/2 inch or 1 centimeter is what you want for a wall. If you don't have your fingers on the other side, of course, your thumb comes out and you have to fix that little hole. So I've made one, second one, and I'm going to put them together. So this second one I made isn't quite big enough. I just manipulate it a little bit, get it nice, maybe a little bit smaller on the outtake. Now your seam is going to show on the inside, but nobody's looking at the inside. Now, this is where you don't put too much pressure on. You're just smoothing the two pieces in together, like so, all the way around your pig. Now, you'll find when you make pinch pots, you will have some extra clay at the ends, and it's way too thick on the ends of your pig or your pinch pot or whatever it is you're making. Now, if it's a pinch pot, you can just use that to stabilize the pot as it sits down. This is my adaptation of a pinch pot piggy. You notice now it's hollow, right? So now I've got this extra stuff on the end. I take that off carefully. Don't want it too thick. And that's what I can use to make additions to my pig. Now, at first when I made these piggy banks, it got really elaborate and I had legs. And I found, of course, one leg was always shorter than the other three and it was wobbly. So my pigs eventually got to the point where they had no legs. I guess that's some sort of joke, but hey. So I'm taking the end off both ends just to make it a little smoother. I'm not going to work this too much. It's just a bore for you to watch, right? Same with the kids. If you're bored now, just think the kids are bored too. So you've taken the extra off. You've got a basic egg shape. You just kind of, again, tamp it down on your clay board. Now you can do all this working. You can take your sponge that's dampened and just work it in and make it nice and smooth. All that stuff can be done later. I just wanted to show you the basics of the pig. Now, the next thing I would do is establish where I want my snout. And I like about this size, I kind of got this started before I started shooting this. Here's my snout. I'm going to go there. And again, you gently work it in so that the snout is not going to fall off. Worst thing that can happen, it's a no snout pig, right? And the nice part about that eyeball gouger, you just take it and you've got your little nostrils. If you press it nice into there, you've got eyeball gouger. Then you would make little teeny tiny eyeballs. Oh, sorry, eye spheres we call them. And we put it right there. Again, make sure, use a tool. One of these little guys works well. Make sure you get that eye at least partially blended in. Take another piece of the clay that I have left over from the mask. Again, make a little sphere. And my pig's probably cross-eyed by the time I'm done. Blend that in, don't forget. And what next? I think what I'm going to do now is establish where I'm going to put the tail. And it's just going to be a little one. I make sure when I put my tail in that I blend that at least the top, but I think just to be sure I'm going to blend it all in. Now the one thing about clay, I'll repeat myself a couple of times maybe, you do not want to overwork it. Don't bend the tail down, bend the tail up, don't wag the tail because it's going to fall off when it dries. So then you start bending your tail. Just nice little tail. You don't want to get too elaborate with your tail. So now I've got 2 eyes, a tail, a snout, and I'm going to take 2 spheres, same size. Get rid of all this extra stuff here. I'm going to flatten them out and make quite large ears to show you. And I'm just going to make them quite basic. Again, don't make your ears too skinny. They will fall off. This is probably a little bit too large. I'm going to just chop some of that off. It's easier just using my fingers, I think. And I would turn this a little bit, and again, I'm going to smooth it in, and the other one's going to be the same, smoothed in. Now, on the ears, you can just smooth in the back. Then you can leave the front if you like. Whatever's convenient. Now, here's the deal. I have to find my eyeball gouger. Where did I stick the darn thing? You know, this is my whole problem. I'm always losing something. Eyeball gouger. Sorry. Take this tool, and I'm now going to cut open where I want the money to drop. And always remind the students you want to have it slightly bigger than they think. Sometimes they'll actually take out money and measure. And you're saying, okay, but this hole will more than likely shrink when it dries. Get in there with your eyeball gouger and get that extra clay out of there. And so you have a nice hole for your piggy bank. Now, one of the things I had to learn how to do, that piece just got flipped in. Oh well, bummer. I had to explain to the students that there is an old-fashioned way to take money out of a piggy bank, and that is, of course, have the money in, reach over here, and when you want the money out, put a knife in, and the money slides out the knife. Just something you want to explain. So this is my little piggy bank, and in order to get the roughness on the pig, I took a brush, like a vegetable brush, and just brushed it and gave kind of the semblance of bristles and just a flat bottom. And eventually I used to put the little felt pieces so that they didn't scratch the table up. So number 2 project is a pig. There he is, she is, whoever. Last project I was just going to run through is a seated figure. Now, seated figures are great. They don't have to be very elaborate. They can just be a basic seated figure, and then the students can paint them with acrylic paints. Works really well. So I've got a little seat for the figure to sit on. I would plop that down, and I just showed them basically. They don't need to have too many details because they'll go with it once they understand a few things, which you explain in this explanation. Then you start with your torso, and that would be attached to the seat, whatever the seat is. That can be a rock. They can paint it as a rock, or something more elaborate if they like. Nothing too flimsy. The other thing about this, it's going to be too thick. It will fall apart. Take some of this out. And you could have done that before you started even. Now, I think the size of the torso should be all right. You just kind of use your judgment call. Then you're adding legs. And I make little snaky legs here. And they can just be tucked in to the figure that's seated, and then make the legs bend. Now what you want to show the students is the fact, again, you don't want to bend your legs back and forth, back and forth. It's not going to work. So you just attach it, run it down. One foot's bigger than the other. You can fix that. Now I just run through really quickly, and then they can spend 1 or 2 or 3 periods. Then you're going to attach your arms, a little thinner than the legs I would think. You don't have to make hands. The whole point of this is you could make it so that your figure is being painted. So if they have clothing on, they've got a blue suit, whatever, I'm just putting my hands at my side. Then of course you're going to add your head. This is just rudimentary, right? This is just basic, but everything has to be added. Gauge it to be small. Don't make really large figures. And you can't make a figure that tap dances when you're teaching clay to beginning people who have never done 3D before. You want to have a basic figure that they're going to be happy with and they can paint. You can paint eyes, nose, whatever, a nice big heart on it. Close-up shot of the face. Of course, I had a tendency to want to change it, but this is how I made it as it was, and that's as far as the demonstration would go. You can mention hair with a garlic press. You can mention adding hair when it's been fired with glue and yarn if you like. The piggy bank with his little tail sticking up. Of course, I had to add eyeball gouge your eyes. I thought that was really important. Now, here are some piggy banks I have made in the past. This first one, it's got a bronze glaze on it, and I put the glaze into all of the little bristle marks and then wiped it off. Also, it's got some glaze on the inside of the coin slot. And over here, another one, a little different color. It kind of matches the clay, so it's kind of a spicy color, I think. And this last one, I will never get rid of this one. My daughter made this one when she was in grade 4. Really a great job, I thought, for a grade 4 student. And then I thought she was exceptional, but then that's the mother for you. This is my little figure. And I would have, if I was teaching a class, made a comment about how bad those arms look because they're not on the shoulders. And I would fix it. We'll just take another kind of look from the side here. Okay, and going back to the pig on this side and the face on this side.